Section 4 of The Purple Sapphire and Other Posthumous Papers by Christopher Blayre. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Thing That Smelt. To the zoologists of 25 years ago, the name of Augustine Black, Austin Black he called himself, was uncomfortably familiar. He was a patient and keen observer of animal life, and his photographs of beasts and birds, made under all kinds of critical conditions, were greatly and justly admired. But there was another and an extraordinary side to the man. He was a semi-professional spiritualist, and reaped a rich harvest, it was said, from that curiously constituted segment of humanity whose vanity leads them to seek for evidence of a personal life after death, who sit with obscurely disreputable mediums in lower middle-class parlors in doubtful neighborhoods, and accept the suggestions of the managers of such seances that the raucous cacklings of uneducated persons through tubes of brown paper are communications from their dear ones, who, in the cant phrase of the profession, have passed over. They even welcome the futile familiarities of John King, whose Arab face glowers over the circle, and incidentally may be bought for a few shillings from any reputable purveyor of conjurers' accessories. Austin Black's success in this branch of industry resulted from the fact that he ran his seances in his studio at Tulse Hill on more highly sophisticated lines. He had an admirable chamber organ, and employed a professional string quartet to play behind impermeable curtains what time materializations took place of high church dignitaries, whose Latin would disgrace a fourth-form schoolboy, and of eminent scientists whose scientific observations were startling in their puerility and ignorance. At the same time, it must be confessed that there were occasions upon which the phenomena exhibited in return for the guineas of his sitters, for his were not the normal 5-shilling entertainments, were, though futile, quite inexplicable to an ordinary observer. And a new patron had to be introduced by a convinced dupe, and the keen scrutiny of Austin Black, and his few well-chosen remarks and questions to the newcomer, made it clear that none but ordinary observers were privileged to get their money's worth. If Black was not satisfied as to gullibility, or suspected a plot to expose the modus operandi, the spirits lay doggo and would not perform. He would explain that there was an inimical influence present, and when the seance was given up, the habitués regarded and treated the stranger in such a manner as to convey to him that they considered that he had not only spoilt their evening, but had meanly swindled them out of the fees for that seance, and that stranger was never introduced again. I frequently met Austin Black at the scientific meetings of the Zoological Society, and in spite of his over-florid courtesy, he was to me as Dr. Fell of pious memory. It was therefore with mixed feelings that I yielded to my friend Mark Shelton's pressing invitation to assist at one of Black's seances in company with him and his friend George Carver. "No doubt he does help out his seances with tricks," explained Mark, "but things do happen there that I cannot explain in any way whatever. I do wish you would come, once at least." "What sort of things?" I asked. "Oh, little things, generally of no importance, which have little or nothing to do with the show. But at least twice there have been a sort of snarling in the room, and when this happens, Black stops the seance, says the controls are getting angry or out of hand, and then when the lights go up, he is a sight to see. Horrible. He seems to have worked himself up to such a pitch that he is white and sweating with terror. He bundles us all out as quickly as he can." I confess that this interested me. Shelton was an extraordinarily prosaic and clear-minded man, an idle man about town with ample means, and a beautiful apartment in the Albany. He did not believe in spiritualism as such, but confessed that the manifestations interested and, on occasion, thrilled him. He never missed a good conjuring show at a variety theater, and admitted that he loved to be taken in, and to see tricks and phenomena that passed his comprehension. Well, I went. Black had small, piercing dark eyes and a little waxed mustache, and I found him a very different person from the obsequious Black I had avoided becoming accustomed to. He put me through a short but highly efficient cross-examination as to my experience of seances, and my object in assisting at this one, but I managed to convey an impression of imbecility, and to place in his hands my guilty secret that, in spite of my position as professor of zoology in the University of Cosmopoli, I was a dabbler in metaphysics, and prepared to admit the existence of superphysical forces which I did not understand, but viewed with respect. The solidity of my introduction, however, it was, that secured my admission to the circle. But Black was obviously on his guard, and nothing called for astonishment or remark in the performance, unless it was a materialization of Pope Innocent III, who welcomed and blessed us in a mixture of elementary school Latin and atrocious modern Italian. A cardinal was in attendance upon him who wore a long beard. I commented foolishly upon this, and Black quickly explained that he was a Franciscan cardinal, which entirely satisfied the circle, but put our ecclesiastical visitors to flight. "What did you think of it?" asked Shelton as we walked down to the main road. "I didn't think of it," I replied. "But I can't help thinking of Black. Poor chap." "Why poor chap?" "Don't you see how it has got a hold of him? He is clearly a charlatan, but he is afraid of himself. Have you never seen a child who is afraid of the dark experimenting with mock bravery? Going into a dark cupboard of which he controls the door handle, he is not really in the dark. Black's tricks are the dark cupboard of which he holds the door handle. I'll bet you he doesn't hold seances by himself." "I wonder," replied Shelton. He was curiously silent all the way back to town. A few weeks later I noticed casually in the Daily Telegraph the announcement of the death of Augustine Black, F.S.Z., at his house on Tulse Hill. It was about 3 weeks or a month after this that Mark Shelton rang me up on the telephone. The telephone was not then the universal blessing or curse that it is now, and installations were few and far between, a sort of scientific toy for the chosen few, and I could have counted on my fingers the friends who had them in their houses. Shelton's voice sounded grave and subdued in answer to my cheery greeting. "I want you to dine with me tonight," he said. "Can't possibly. I am dining out." "Oh, but you must," he answered. "I want you particularly. It's most important." "But I tell you I can't. Who else is coming?" "No one. I want you, and you must come. Put your other party off. Tell them it's a matter of life and death." "But, I say—" "Don't say anything," he interrupted. "I'm telling you the truth. I've got something to tell you which must be told here. And it is a matter of life and death. If you don't come, I shall not be alive in the morning." By this time his voice was quivering, and I realized that something very serious was the matter. So I answered curtly, "Oh, all right. I'll come. But don't talk bosh and buck up. What have you been doing with yourself?" "Nothing. I haven't left my rooms for 3 weeks." "All right," I replied. "I'll come and dig you out." I got to the Albany at 7:30, and was let in by his man, the imperturbable Bates. "How is Mr. Shelton?" I asked him casually as I put down my hat and coat. "I don't know, sir," replied Bates. "I can't make him out. Seems to be brooding all the time. Never goes out and doesn't eat anything to speak of." I went into Shelton's sitting room, which was stiflingly hot. Though it was a fine May day, he had a large fire, and all the curtains were closely drawn. Mark was sitting before the fire in his day clothes doing nothing. "Good heavens," I said. "What an atmosphere. No wonder you're nervy. Got any windows open?" "No, and don't open them. I've a reason. Is the air very beastly?" "Not beastly," I said, "but intolerably hot." "Not foul and stuffy?" "No." "Don't you notice a queer smell?" "No. What sort of smell?" "Well," he hesitated a moment and then said, "like the small cat house at the zoo." "Not in the least," I replied. "Whatever is the matter with you?" "I don't know. I want you to tell me." I looked at him critically. Was he, the sane and athletic Shelton, going mad? The phrase olfactory delusions came into my mind. "Tell me all you can about it," I said. "Presently," he replied. "After dinner." So with that, for the moment, I had to be content. We went in to dinner. As usual, it was exquisite. Shelton could, and did, afford a perfect cook, and on this occasion she had surpassed herself. Shelton tasted everything and sent his plate away practically untouched. At every dish he said, "Pah! Beastly! Don't you notice a filthy taste in this?" "No, it's excellent. What kind of taste?" "Well," and again the hesitation, "like the small cat house at the zoo." It seemed to be a mania. I told him he should consult X, the great nose and ear specialist. He only shook his head wearily. After dinner, he consented to have a window open and to let the fire die down. He told me he had got up a frowst so that I should get it in all its force, but he accepted doubtfully my assurance that the air was perfectly clean. He brought me a volume of Japanese engravings he wanted me to see, and as he leaned over me, he said, "Don't you mind my leaning over you?" And he looked searchingly into my eyes. "Not in the least. Why on earth should I?" "Good God, man, don't you notice that I stink?" "Not at all. What do you imagine you stink of? The small cat house again?" "Yes, that's it. It's ghastly. I can never get away from it." "Tell me," I said quietly, "when and how did this begin?" And he told me a most amazing and horrible story. "You remember Austin Black, the spiritualist zoologist?" "Yes, we took you, Carver and I, to one of his seances. You may have seen that he is dead. Carver and I were there when he died. There was no inquest, for his domestic GP certified the ever-ready heart disease of long standing. There was a seance, only 4 of us, and Black and his medium. Black was awfully strung up that night. He told us the conditions could not be more favorable. It wasn't a show night, and there was no music and no tricks. But queer, uncomfortable things happened. A spreading light over the table, and a leg of my chair suddenly snapped off. We turned up the lights. It seemed to have been bitten through. I wanted to stop, but Black, though he looked ghastly, wouldn't hear of it. He said, "I want to see this thing through. I want to down it." And we started the seance again. Almost immediately I heard that snarling I told you about, and Black, who was on my right, got up in the dark and left the table. We heard a sort of scuffling and then a choking noise in the corner of the room. We switched on the light and saw Black lying on his back by the wall, his tongue out and blue in the face, struggling violently with nothing. We rushed up at him and tried to pick him up. There was something that we could not see between us and him, pinning him down. We could feel it, though. It was soft and pulpy, with a surface not furry, but like a mouse or a mole, and huge. And it stank like the small cat house at the zoo. We could not free him of it, and we saw him die, choked before our eyes, whilst we clawed at that soft, pulpy nothing. We could not move it. When he was quite still, the thing got up of its own accord. Carver and I were crouched close together, and the thing forced its way between us, and so away. How it stank! It seemed to leave a greasy smear of smell all over us. We called his wife, a queer woman. She did not seem badly shocked or to care much. Carver said afterwards that she seemed to him to be intensely relieved at something. All she said was, "I expected this. It has happened before." She evidently did not realize that he was dead. "Please go away at once. I will send for his doctor. He is close by." We went. The other 2, strangers, and the medium, had bolted directly we turned up the lights. As Carver and I walked down the hill, he said, it's awful, how it stank, and I can't get rid of the stink." No more could I. Carver and I parted at Vauxhall. I never saw him again. I inquired a day or 2 later and heard he was ill. A week later I heard he had a stroke, and was in a private madhouse. I had baths, Turkish baths. I changed my clothes 6 times a day. I always smelt of that thing. I do still. I can't bear it. I shall go mad like Carver. Everything I touch smells of it. Everything I try to eat tastes of it. I've tried to get over it, and I can't. That's why at last I sent for you and closed up everything and lit a fire to give you the fullest chance. Now I know that I can't do anything. It's in me and part of me. I shall never be free of it. That thing is here with me. It's prowling round all the time, but only I can smell it. God help me. To say that I was horrified is to use a miserably inadequate term. But before I left Mark Shelton that night, I had arranged with him to go in 3 days to Norway fishing. We settled everything, when to start, where to go, and what to take. I left him, still rather dazed, but much easier in my mind. That night, at about 1 a.m., Mark Shelton blew out his brains. End of section 4.